broadcasting live from the Baton Rouge Hilton, or the Hilton Baton Rouge Capitol Center. It is the Pelican Institute's Solutions Summit. We're coming to you not just through 9 a.m., all the way through 11 a.m. as Moon Grafana is going to pick things up after I'm done and carry it on all the way through the end of his show. Got a guest list that continues throughout my show. Grover Norquist coming your way about 15 minutes from right now. Jonathan Williams going to talk budget in our 8 o'clock hour. Sarah Harbison going to talk regulation. Deregulation is more to the point. Right now, though, we're going to talk education. I want to welcome in Dr. Erin Bendily to the show. Welcome back.
Thank you.
To the show. Glad to have you on. Glad to be talking about this today. Education. First of all, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Thrilled
to be here.
I get fired up about this. Like, I know it's so nerdy. I get it. But, like, this sort of thing, when you could walk in to April 10th already ready, as opposed to walking in completely blind, it makes all the difference in the world for getting things done. You have direction. You have a path to be on.
That's exactly right, and that's why we do this. And we choose this time of year for a reason. We know this is the time where a lot of issues are being discussed, and not just nerdy technical policy issues, but these are real issues that Louisiana people care about that affect their livelihood, their public safety, their education for their kids, taxes in our economy, the ability to have jobs for our families. These are things that are so important, and we have a lot of work to do in our state.
We do. Your role here is going to be talking about education. What are we talking about within your session?
Well, we certainly have a lot to do in the area of education. For years we have struggled to get to get toward the top of the list. We've been at the bottom of the list for several years in terms of student achievement. One way that we believe that we can help families as we continue to improve our public school system is to not ask them to just wait until we get it right. We need to give them options. We know that kids are different. They have different talents, different abilities, different needs, and what works for one kid may not work for another. The best thing that we can do right now is to give families as many options as we can to make sure that they can put their child in the school that best fits his or her unique needs.
How do we do that?
Well, one way that a lot of states are doing that, and we've seen just over the past year, 5 states now, with the addition of Arkansas yesterday, our neighbor to the north, is to provide something called education savings accounts or education scholarships accounts. These are school choice programs that basically take the amount of money that the state would have otherwise spent on a child's education in the public school system, and they put those funds into an account that is directed by the parent. And so the parent can use those funds to find a school that works for their kid, whether it's a private school, whether it's a customized program. It may look like homeschool. It may look like, a micro school. And those funds are flexible. They can use them for tuition, for fees, for textbooks, for technology, curriculum, and supplies. Again, all meant to design something that works for that child.
In short, the money follows the kid.
Absolutely.
In short. How does this work for, like, let's say, the charter school space, which is continuing to grow in the state?
It is, and we have about 150 charter schools in Louisiana, largely centered in New Orleans and in Baton Rouge. Those are public schools. Now, they are public schools of choice. No kid is assigned to go there. The states have done this different ways. In some states, we're seeing that they're making these new ESA type programs also available to go to any public school of your choice as well.
Yeah.
Some have limited it to just private schools. I think states have a lot of flexibility in terms of how they craft those programs. We certainly favor more flexibility. I think as many choices as we can give families, whether that's public, private, online, homeschool, the better.
We're talking with Dr. Erin Bendily about education and ESAs as we're walking right up to registration opening up for the Pelican Institute's Solutions Summit. Erin, you're talking to a guy who's got 3 kids. 1 at St. Joseph's, 2 at Our Lady of Mercy. I pay a lot of Catholic school tuition. I work extra jobs in order to get that done, and I look at it as the best money I'm ever going to spend in my life. How would this work for me in terms of, like, would it just roll back into, as part of my taxes, roll over into an account where I can access? Like, what's the boots on the ground, real life application here?
Well, it starts with the legislature determining who's eligible for the program. And again, I mentioned states have designed this in different ways. What we're seeing in terms of the most expansive programs that have been passed in the states that have them is to not just make them available to small populations of students, like students that are currently in a D or F rated public school, or students with disabilities. We're actually seeing states take really, really big steps to say, let's make this available to all families, whether they're already in a private school, whether they are homeschooling right now, whether they have their child in a public school. And so I think, what we'll hear from families across our state and from voters this fall is exactly what you said. I mean, it's crazy that families right now are, in some cases having to pay twice. They pay their taxes to support public education in their community, and then they also pay separately if they feel like they have to choose a private school option, which, to your point, can be very costly.
Well, and I have no problem with that in general, simply because an educated populace is good for all of us. And I get that, but I'm throwing money down the drain with where our schools come out graded. But it would be nice to have just a little bit of help. A little bit of lessening that burden.
Absolutely. For middle-income families, particularly, and low-income families, that right now, the ones who have the ability to do that are the ones who are blessed with the resources to do so.
Yes.
So there are many kids whose families cannot afford to do that. They deserve an education. And to your point about just the need to have an educated citizenry, we all need all children to get the best quality education possible.
So how do we do this without the students being left behind?
Well, I think we have to, one, cast a wide net and open the doors. We have to say, this is important for all kids. This is important for all of Louisiana. As we talk about our economy, as we talk about our future, we have to get this right. So we have to make sure that the door is wide open in terms of who can access these programs, who gets the ability to get a great education. We shouldn't be limiting that on the front end. And then we've got to make sure that kids who are behind in reading, which we talked a lot about literacy, we have to make sure that wherever kids go, they have the supports to help them.
We're talking with Dr. Erin Bendily about improving education throughout the state. Yeah, the literacy program, the Steve Carter literacy program has been a big topic on my show, either talking with the legislators who put it in or talking with Dr. Cade Brumley about it. It's one subject throughout a number of courses during the day, but it's a very, very important one, and it's one of those ones where I feel like if we can get that right, we can not move on to the next thing, but add the next thing after that. If we can't get that right, I don't even know what we're doing here.
We know that those first few years of a child's education is so critical. That brain is still developing. We know research has told us that if we don't get it right and we can't get a child on track to be a good, solid reader, that is the foundation of their education and their future.
Right.
We know that they will continue to struggle for many years if we don't get that right. So, yes, the Steve Carter Literacy Program is a great program. I hope parents will take advantage of it. I hope schools will promote it. There are still spots available. You can go to LouisianaBelieves.com and sign up, and I hope more parents will take advantage of that.
We got less than 2 minutes to go with Dr. Erin Bendily talking education here as part of the Pelican Institute Solution Summit. Okay, in these last 2 minutes, I'm going to ask you this, and take it in the spirit that's given. Every time talk of school choice comes up, every time the talk of ESAs comes up, every time a talk of putting more into the student and less into the system comes up, it's proposed or it's received as an either-or. How do we walk that path of letting the traditional public schools know you're not being left behind here? This is not an either-or. We could do both.
Well, and you're right. And we can't approach this as an either-or. We can't talk about this as an attack or in a negative way against public education. We know the vast majority of families are likely going to continue to choose their neighborhood school.
Right.
We need those schools to be excellent for those kids as well. But it's also not to say that you're anti-public school or you're anti-education when you talk about giving families more options. And in fact, you're pro-kid, you're pro-family, you're pro-Louisiana when you truly make that a priority.
She is Dr. Erin Bendily, handling the education, and I believe your breakout is coming up at, 1 o'clock this afternoon?
Yes.
What states are doing education?
At 1 o'clock, we'll have a session where we'll talk with a couple of national experts of more about school choice, more about some of these targeted strategies like literacy,
15.
like career training in high school, and we'll also talk more about charter schools as well.
Looking forward to it. She is Dr. Erin Bendily. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
We've got Grover Norquist coming up.